My name's Steve Gross. I'm one of the product marketing managers for Asia Pacific. So if I sound a little bit funny, that's because I'm based in Sydney in Australia, so I do pronounce some things a little bit strangely. Having said that, hopefully we should have a great session. We've got a fantastic turnout. And really, before we jump into the presentation, what I thought I'd do is just spend a couple of minutes talking about why VMware would go and spend time on a session such as this. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in the room from all of you, and really what it comes down to is that a number of years ago, the decision around virtualization was, do I virtualize or do I stay physical? And over the last couple of years, there have been a number of organisations that have entered the virtualisation space. And as they're coming in with somewhat relatively immature products, they're making a lot of claims to the market about what the capabilities are, what the pricing of the particular products are. And they're spending a lot of time marketing this information into the field. And as a result, you, our customers, are finding that you're being asked a question to say, guys, how come we're investing in VMware when I've just had a meeting with various software vendors' representatives, and they say that we can go and do the same things that VMware can do at a much lower cost, or we can actually go and provide much more functionality than what VMware can do. So part of the reasoning for putting on a session like this is to help you go and articulate back to your management, your CIOs, etc., of how do we go and answer those sorts of questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and walk through a framework that we use very regularly with our field and really educate on how to respond to some of those claims and really go and build up a framework that we can go and really give a clear, articulate message back to the people who are asking the questions. On top of that, at the end of the session, we'll give you some resources and point you some directions where you can go and gain some further information. Now, as I mentioned, as part of my role, I'm based in Sydney in Australia and cover the Asia Pacific and Japan markets. And that gives me a really fantastic ability to see many different markets across the region. So if we have a look at Australia and Japan, they are very mature markets. So we're seeing that customers are well down the virtualization journey that we heard Paul Moritz and Steve Herod articulate on the keynote yesterday morning. And the discussions become somewhat different around what can we do and what are we enabling to the business with our virtualization solution, and how does that compare to what else is in the marketplace. If you look at some other markets, we've got some more emerging markets around China, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, those sorts of areas. And they're in the very early stages of development. And the conversations there become a little bit more interesting because it comes back to the point of, what are we doing? Are we just doing server consolidation, right? And there's lots of products on the market that will do server consolidation. But then we have to go and articulate to the customers about, what else is this virtualization product going to deliver to your organisation, and where are you going to go down the journey. So with that, let's jump into the slides. Standard disclaimer slide. I'm not going to talk about anything that's new or not released yet, so not too much of an issue. So when we talk about this, we talk about this framework, and it's really made up of 5 points. So we're starting to talk about how virtualization goes and requires a robust and reliable underpinnings. If the hypervisor doesn't work, then nothing else in the stack will. And then we're looking at complete virtualization platform for all of your applications. It's great to say, that I want to be able to go and support, some of this application, some of these applications on a particular platform, but, can we go and virtualize other applications? Are they too big? Are they too heavy? And of course, we need to be able to go and deliver complete virtualization management. Okay, it's really important as we're moving through the various stages of the journey that we can go and manage and deliver the features and the functions that support the business requirements. And of course, broad infrastructure support. You're going to need to be able to support all of the hardware, like I said, all of the applications, and really deliver virtualization across the organisation, not just in point solutions. And then finally, it comes down to proven customer success. And I don't think there's any doubts that VMware is the virtualization leader worldwide. So we'll go and show you a couple of points there. And then the final point around that is around a lot of the claims that we're hearing organisations make. You may have heard, Microsoft saying things like, we can go and deliver the same functionality for 1/3, 1/5, 1/6 the cost of VMware, right? And then all of a sudden that rings bells with, with senior management saying, well, why can't we do this? And how can we go and demonstrate to you that the vSphere platform actually delivers the lowest total cost of ownership of any product out there, including even free products. So we'll go through all of those various points there. So as I said, the underpinnings of a virtualization solution is the hypervisor. We need to make sure that this hypervisor is absolutely rock solid. So how do we talk about this? Well, the first thing that we did was we surveyed our customers to ask them, as part of the purchasing decisions for implementing a virtualization solution, what are your key criteria? And you can see here, overwhelmingly, it is about a robust, reliable platform that is high performance and lowers ongoing costs. Okay, so what we need to do is make sure that we can go and deliver on those attributes, because that is really what organisations are looking for. And it comes back to our architectures. And you would have heard through the various sessions that ESXi is the platform and our architecture choice moving forward. So when we look at the architecture, we have very, very deliberately chosen the ESXi architecture to be as small and thin and performant as possible. Okay, we have an architecture that is very unique to the marketplace in that it does not depend on a general purpose operating system. That means from the ground up, it is developed to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to deliver virtualization services to the virtual machines running on top of that. So we're not attached to a general purpose operating system. And secondly, we have a driver model that is, again, unique in the marketplace. We have gone and located our drivers in the ESX core, and each of the virtual machines talks directly down to those drivers in the ESX core and then down into the hardware. Now, the reason we've done this is because it provides us with outstanding scalability, outstanding reliability, and it really enables us to go and deliver that rock-solid platform. Now, the reason I say this is that the drivers that are embedded in the kernel of ESXi are thoroughly tested, reviewed and tested, and implemented as part of the deployment. So what that means is that we will go and support all the sorts of hardware that you would put in your data centers today. But the result of it is that we have gone and removed any unnecessary code from those drivers. We've gone and tested them under extremely high loads to make sure that they perform. We have made sure that they're stable and robust. So extremely important from that side of things. On top of that, we've also got the ability to go and introduce technologies into the hypervisor that allow significantly greater density, and I'll talk about that later in the presentation. If we compare that to other architectures on the market, all of the other virtualization solutions rely on a general purpose operating system, be that Windows, be that a Linux partition. And what the architecture of these deployments is that we go and they go and redirect all of the I/O from the virtual machines into the general purpose OS. So in the Windows world, it's called the parent partition. In the Linux world, it's called domain 0. And these drivers are general purpose drivers. So what that enables is for you to go and download a driver from the manufacturer's website and go and install it into that parent partition or domain 0. And whilst it gives a great deal of flexibility, it also presents a large challenge for throughput and also from reliability point of views, because these drivers weren't necessarily architected to go and deliver virtualization services. Traditionally, the drivers have been delivered to go and be used in a physical world and to be used for a singular workload. So as a result, we see in a number of products in the market that generates I/O bottlenecks and also potentially instabilities in platforms, because it's just not tested to do the job that it's being put forward to do. So the architectures do make a significant difference as part of the underlying platform and that robust architecture. And it also comes back to size. If you're attached to a general purpose operating system, you've got millions of lines of code sitting there that have got absolutely nothing to do with virtualization. As I mentioned, ESXi was built from the ground up with one thing in mind, and that was virtualization. And you can see here that if you look at the size of an ESXi deployment, it's around about 70 megabytes. So what that means is that you've got 70 megabytes of code that is purpose-built with virtualization. If we compare that with other products in the market, about 1.8 gigabytes of code for Zen Server 5. Gets a little bit worse with Windows. A server core install of Hyper-V is around about 3.6 gigabytes. The full install is around about 9.5. So what that means is there's literally millions of lines of code sitting there that are doing nothing to do with delivering virtualization to the organization. So it really does make a very big difference as to what you need to go and patch, what you need to go and secure, what you need to go and maintain. If we have a look at the record of Hyper-V as it's been delivered to market from the middle of 2008, we can see that every month since the launch of Hyper-V, excluding, 3 of them on there have been extremely important server core patches, and there have been a small number of patches that directly relate to Hyper-V. The net result of that is that every month you are going and maintaining code that is not related to virtualization. So there's 3 months on the screen there that we've got code relating patches relating to Hyper-V, and there's 13 months worth of patches. So 10 months you're patching something that's got nothing to do with virtualization. So it is clearly a demonstration of why it's a bad example to go and attach a hypervisor to a general purpose operating system. And we're not the only ones saying it. So if you see Neil McDonald here from Gartner, he's saying from a security perspective, smaller is better, right? Don't disagree with that. Microsoft doesn't even disagree with that. That's why they released Server Core. But what he does go on to say is that patching is absolutely paramount in these environments. One of the reasons there are so many patches to Server 2008 is the fact that it includes the majority of Internet Explorer 8. So your virtualization solution is sitting there with Internet Explorer and all the potential vulnerabilities as part of that. If we go on, Tom Bittman from Gartner as well, he actually took it one step further. He got a little bit more direct here and said the problem with Hyper-V is it wholly depends on Windows. So what you wind up with is one big single point of failure. And this is a distinguished analyst from Gartner saying these comments. So really, it's not just us talking about the fact that small is good. So from a robust and reliable point of view, there are a significant number of decisions that you can make based around just the pure architectures there. But what about the complete platform for all of your applications? You need to be able to go and support all of these applications so that we can move through that journey and get to the cloud, get to the cloud, move to the cloud, be able to go and use all of the technologies and benefits that are delivered. Now, you would have seen this in the keynote, delivering IT as a service, being able to go and consume IT in a way that is irrelevant of what's sitting underneath it. It needs to be ubiquitously available, it needs to be reliable, and you need to go and pay for what you use. Okay, so that's the goal of where we're moving to. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You saw this in the keynote. That the basis of this is what you're pretty much doing today, moving towards the private cloud inside your organisation, and then being able to go and take advantage of the public clouds that are available on the market today, and then bridging the choice between the two to deliver the hybrid cloud. Okay, and we heard a great articulation of this vision and this strategy as part of the keynote yesterday. So as part of VMware's move towards this cloud computing architecture, we've got a very, very clear path from the private cloud to the public cloud to the hybrid cloud. And again, this is a Gartner slide talking about the fact that when you're moving from a internal cloud type scenario with a Microsoft platform and then moving into a public cloud, it becomes somewhat cloudy. Can I use that term? Somewhat fuzzy. Nobody's laughing this morning. Okay, I must have a strange sense of humour. Okay, so with that, it really is about being able to do exactly the same thing as you do inside your organisation and being able to do it outside. And then from a platform perspective, it becomes really interesting to have a look at what we have gone and architected in the platform to go and achieve these sorts of things. So from the bottom half of this slide, from infrastructure services, it is really critical to obviously to be able to go and deliver compute, storage and network type services and deliver those services up to the application layer. So being able to go and drive your IT department from the point of view of availability, security and compliance and scalability. And whilst I'm a bit of a geek and I love to get down to the feature and function levels, what these features and functions that are listed on the screen here, they are there to go and drive services back into the business. I'll give you one example of that. If you have a look at where is it? Storage vMotion down the bottom there. VMware is the only organisation that offers the ability to go and move a running virtual machine from one storage location to another storage location without downtime. And whilst it sounds pretty cool, I'll give you a real-world example of what happened with this particular technology. In Australia, I was working with one of the banks, and they have been a long-term VMware customer. And they were going through a period of time where they're having a capacity and performance issues with one of their SANs. And over a period of time, their IT staff developed a practice of being able to go and move virtual machines around on various LUNs on their existing storage array to go and overcome performance issues. And this while they were waiting for their new SAN to be implemented. And so what happened was this became a business as usual practice for them. So when they eventually got their new SAN implemented, they went through a process of migrating around about 20 terabytes of virtual machines from their old SAN onto the new SAN in a period of 24 hours. In a period of 24 hours during production time. That's pretty cool, right? And we sat there and we said to them, did you actually calculate what that particular feature, this process saved you? And they went away and they came back and they said we saved around about $220,000 in planned downtime. That's the cost they associated with it. Now that's Aussie dollars, so if we translate that into US dollars, that's about 200,000 US dollars. Depending on the exchange rate, it changes a little bit. But anyway, so the net of it is that just that one single feature in the underlying architecture effectively went and justified the purchase expense of the licenses. Right? So it's really critical from that point of view. And then we go through a myriad of other examples there. I could spend a lot of time, but we don't have the time for that today. And what we did with vSphere 4.1 is we took this technology and we went and increased the functionality around what can be delivered in the underlying platform. Again, looking at being able to go and scale to much larger sizes, being able to go and manage storage and network I/O controls, being able to go and implement memory compression when memory resources are scarce to ensure that we don't have a decrease in performance. So, all of these sorts of things are building up and increasing the scale, the functionality of that, and on top of that, increasing the number of applications that you can go and virtualize. And then on top of that is around how can we go and enable better disaster recovery and better continuity as part of a virtualization platform. So if we have a look at the various items here, vMotion, it's been around since 2003. Being able to go and move a running virtual machine from one host to another. You guys all know that. HA, fault tolerance, in there. Storage vMotion I just spoken about. Can be used for SAN migrations. It can be used for performance reasons. Data recovery and vStorage APIs. Being able to go and recover from unplanned downtime. From a networking point of view, network redundancy, NIC teaming, HBA teaming, all those sorts of things to build in that reliability. VM failure monitoring, so if you have a VM that fails, we'll be able to go and restart that. But should you lose an entire site, on top of that, something else unique in there is Site Recovery Manager. Now, Site Recovery Manager, if you haven't looked at it, I really strongly urge you to do, because it is one of the most fantastic products available, and it is something that you, within your organisation, being able to walk up to your CEO or CFO and put hand on heart, I can guarantee you that I can recover these services because I've implemented Site Recovery Manager and I can test it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis and guarantee that I've taken all the due diligence to go and make sure that I can achieve this. So we continue to go and innovate in these sorts of areas because it is delivering all of the services for the particular requirements that your businesses are asking for. So being able to go and support all of your applications. Then from a management perspective, it is absolutely critical that as we move through the virtualization journey, that we're able to go and have detailed management and complete management of the virtualization platform. So if we have a look at basic sort of virtualization, so introductory virtualization, we're talking about a hardware, using hardware and a hypervisor to go and deliver server consolidation. But where we move to very quickly is the fact that we want this server consolidation to be driven by SLAs back to the business. Okay, we're not interested in what sort of hardware or what sort of virtualization platform is running underneath it. What we're interested in is saying to the business that we have the ability to go and turn up and down the dials around these areas. So around availability, around security, around performance. What are the requirements and how do you want to go and be charged for those sorts of environments? And all of that's done through the vCenter product family. And again, in the keynote, you would have seen a large amount of information about how we're building out that vCenter product family. So on the infrastructure side down the bottom, it's about provisioning, it's about configuration, it's about capacity, operations management, performance and availability. But that all leads into delivering to the business self-service management, which is around the self-service portal, the service catalogue and the billing and chargeback. So if we build that out, you can see that we've got a series of existing products and a series of upcoming products that will go and enable that within the organisation. But what we do is we do this extremely well in the virtual world. In the physical world, what we want to do is we want to go and integrate extremely seamlessly into your existing management platform. So what I mean by that is that VMware is not in the business to go and manage physical assets. Okay, there's lots of companies out there that you can see listed across the top that do that extremely well. So what we've done as part of the product is we've opened up the API set as part of VMware vCenter to go and seamlessly integrate into these broader management systems, and we go and make sure that we can seamlessly roll up any alerts or any management pieces and be able to go and then come back down into the vCenter to go and do the detailed management. If we go and compare this to some of the other products on the market, it's quite straightforward being able to go and do some of the basic pieces here. So basic VM provisioning, basic patch management, basic performance management. But as we move through that, what we need to be able to do is make sure that we can go and do the areas that lead us to the cloud, to the private cloud, etc. So what we mean by that is being able to go and do agentless performance monitoring, dynamic load balancing, being able to go and do chargeback, etc. You can see all of those there. And that is something, again, very unique to the VMware platform. Now, I'm not here to go and belittle or bash the competition in any way, shape or form. I love a fair fight. However, one of the things that does drive me a little bit crazy is that we very regularly hear from Microsoft that they can go and manage a VMware environment wonderfully. They've got complete management for a VMware environment. However, I'm afraid that's just simply not true. The implementation that Microsoft has done to go and manage, using System Center Virtual Machine Manager, to go and manage both a Hyper-V and a ESX environment really falls short in a lot of areas. And you can see here, again, it's not only us saying this, virtualization.info talks about the fact that really beyond just the basic provisioning, powering off, migration of a VM, System Center Virtual Machine Manager does not or cannot go and manage a complete environment. So what we find is that administrators spend around about 80% of their time still in the vCenter console to go and manage a mixed environment. Okay, so it's not a complete management. The other thing I would say here as well is that to go and implement the management of a vSphere platform, we've gone and exposed APIs as part of the vCenter server. So what you've got is System Center Virtual Machine Manager sitting on top of vCenter, which then goes and manages the ESX environment. So what that results in is the fact that they've only implemented some of the APIs as part of that. So from a virtualization management point of view, absolutely. Now, broad infrastructure support. We need to be able to make sure that whatever hardware is in your data center, we support. We need to make sure that whatever applications are in your data center, we support. Okay? Or you can achieve support from the vendors that provide those applications. So, again, what we want to be able to do is instead of having various silos of virtualization for different classes of applications, you want to be able to go and take advantage of a common platform across those so that you can go and achieve the benefits that I've been talking about as we've been moving through this presentation. So, we quite regularly hear that, we need to go and virtualize Windows VMs on Hyper-V because it's the best platform for Windows, or Linux VMs on Zen because, Zen understands the Linux world, or Oracle applications on Oracle VM, etc. However, with the technologies and with the experience that we've got, we can virtualize all of these platforms as well, if not better, than any of these dedicated product or point solutions in here. And what is really interesting is that if we look at the history of virtualization, and again, if we go back 3, 4, 5 years, there was a perception that virtualization was only for lightly loaded applications. It was for applications that were not critical for test and dev and for some low-use sorts of things. So if we go back and have a look at this chart, around about 90-95% of applications go and consume less than 2 CPUs, less than 4 gig of RAM, very small amounts of network and disk operations. So, from that point of view, it's very, very simple to go and virtualize those applications. So that was in the earlier days. As we've moved through the evolution of vSphere, we can now go and handle 8 vCPU VMs, 255 gigabytes of RAM, 30 gigabytes per second of transfer, and 350,000 IOPS. Okay, so what that means is even the largest applications today can be virtualized. 350,000 IOPS. I'm not a storage guy, and when they came up with this number, or when they came up with some previous numbers, I said to some of our performance team, what does this really mean? The first number we released in terms of driving I/O from a single vSphere box was 200,000 IOPS. I said, what did that take in the back end to do this from one vSphere server? And they turned around and they said, well, it needed 512 physical disks. Okay, but what does that mean? He said, well, put it this way, we can go and host the equivalent traffic of around about 130,000 Exchange mailboxes from one vSphere host. So from an IOPS point of view, it's absolutely irrelevant because we can go and drive that, provided the back-end storage is catered to that as well. And then from a networking point of view. So what that means is that we can go and support all of the large applications out there. You know, the SAPs, the Oracles, all of the other bits and pieces that typically were on the no-go list. You know, you can't do it because virtualization adds 50% overhead. It doesn't anymore. It used to 4 years ago, but nowadays the overhead of virtualization is typically in single figures, in single digits. Okay, so from that point of view, being able to go and scale and be able to go and virtualize these applications is very, very important. And then also from a supportability around operating systems. vSphere supports the most number of operating systems of any platform on the market today. In fact, we can go and support all the way back to DOS. Okay? If we have a look at, in this particular example on the right-hand side, Hyper-VR 2, they have support for 4-way virtual machines for Server 2008 only. Okay, we go back to Server 2003, and that's a 2-way virtual machine. Go back to 2000, it's uniprocessor, etc. Support for NT4. I'm sure all of you have got an NT4 server floating around somewhere and can no longer buy hardware for it. Great place to go and put it, and it's fully supported in this platform. If we look around on before I move on to that one, from the Linux world, again, Linux is a bit of a second-class citizen in a Microsoft environment. So they've got full support for Novell Celeste and partial support for Red Hat for uniprocessor machines. They have got a beta out at the moment that is to support multiprocessor virtual machines, but I haven't seen that released as of yet. From a Citrix side, pretty much not that much better. Very small scalability on their virtual machines, a small number of operating systems supported. But what is absolutely more important, what is more critical, is the support of applications. So we have got over 400 independent support statements from third-party vendors. So this is quite a critical point because, again, going back 3 and 4 years ago, one of the barriers to virtualization was supportability of the Windows operating system. Microsoft would say we'll give you best effort support if you were a Premier Support customer. Absolutely to Microsoft's credit, they've stepped up to the plate and they've introduced a program called the Server Virtualization Validation Program. If you're not aware of it, I strongly recommend that you go and have a look at it. What it means is that it allows third-party virtualization vendors to go and certify their hypervisors against the Windows Server 2008 operating system and achieve full support for the Windows operating system, retrospective all the way back to Server 2000 SP4. Okay, so you get full support for your Microsoft operating systems. More importantly than that, they have certified, and I haven't kept count of the numbers, initially on release they certified 31 applications for full support. So that includes things like Exchange, SQL, etc., etc. Some of the OCS pieces are fully supported in there. There's a configuration wizard that you can go to on the Microsoft website. Have a look at that one. But even more importantly, for 41 of their applications, Microsoft have removed the licensing restrictions for virtual machines moving from one physical host to another under vMotion. Okay, so what that means is that previously, if you vMotioned an Exchange server from one host to another, you actually used to have to buy 2 licenses, okay, because the licenses of Exchange were tied to the physical hardware. Under the SCVMM program, those licenses will follow the virtual machine to the other host. So really important you have a look at that. On top of that is things like applications such as SAP, such as the other big, the Siebels, all of the various applications there. Really important that they've got a support statement and it becomes very clear and it's not a risk. And on top of that, we also go and provide a interface between VMware and ISVs that haven't certified their applications so that we can go and help them achieve the certification status as part of that. And then finally on the complete platform is around virtual desktops. You would have heard about View. So being able to go and use that same infrastructure, those same set of capabilities, those same disaster recovery technologies that we're talking about to go and deliver your virtual desktops. So from broad infrastructure support, absolutely not a problem there. And then customer proven success. Well, I think VMworld here is a testament to that as it is. 17,000 people here at this event being able to really showing their support for the product. So some fantastic stats. 190,000 customers worldwide, all of the Fortune 100, all of the global Fortune 100. You can go and read the numbers up there. It is absolutely amazing the support that we've got across the industry for this technology. And we're going to go and continue to innovate as part of that, as part of our role as a virtualization leader. You've seen vSphere 4, vSphere 4.1, we're continuing to go down that path. And then around third-party validation. This here is an extract from the first Gartner server virtualization Magic Quadrant. You can see that VMware has been placed fairly and squarely in the upper right-hand corner as part of a visionary and an organisation that's able to execute on their vision. So you can see that majority of the organisations are down in the lower left corner with a couple of other organisations outside of that top right corner. So from a customer proven success point of view. Now, question, what about cost? I said at the start that through the technologies that we have in our platform, that we are actually the most cost-effective solution, even when comparing to a so-called free solution. One thing that drives me nuts is these sorts of slides, borrowed from Microsoft Tech Ed. What is the cost of virtualization according to Microsoft? I'm going to be a little bit nasty here. It's how much revenue does Microsoft get from you deploying virtualization? Okay, that's not the true cost, right? We've seen various versions of this slide ranging from 1/3 to 1/5 to 1/6 the cost. So how do you go and answer this question when your management goes and brings this to you and says, guys, you're spending 3 times too much money on this VMware stuff? How do we go and answer this question? Well, let me step back a little bit and let's work out what is the true cost of virtualization. In a physical world, when you deployed an application, you went and bought a server, you bought an operating system, you installed the application, and you had a nice, neat bundle of what that application cost you. Okay, in the virtual world, it gets a little bit more difficult because what you're doing is just sharing resource in the server side of things. So what we really need to do is we need to work out what is the cost per application or the cost per virtual machine, another way of saying it, to determine what is the true cost of this virtualization. So, as I've mentioned, we've got technologies in our product that enable much greater density than any other product on the market today. So, memory over subscription. Okay, so a lot of our customers, especially our mature customers, when we've done a survey of them, they're overcommitting their RAM typically around about 1.8 times physical RAM. Okay, so that's an average. It changes through the maturity of the journey down virtualization. DRS and resource pools enable you to go and carve out the right sorts of allocations to virtual machines and go and move them around depending on the various loads. Our high-performance gang scheduler. What does that mean? Is basically our scheduler in the VM kernel is written from the ground up to do the one thing that it's designed for, which is virtualization. Our direct drive model I've spoken about, our support for the hardware. All of this leads to increased scalability. Now, I didn't have a chance to update this graph in here. So this is comparing scalability of ESX4, Hyper-V R2, or in this case it was a release candidate, and Zen Server 5.5. We've got an updated version of this, which continues down this path, and there's a session on this actually following. I've got the details at the end. that talks about the scalability limits and the throughput limits of the various architectures. And what it results in is a third-party validation that we do scale better than any platform on the market. So having said all of that, what does it mean around the cost of virtualization? Of course, the cost of the virtualization software is the first thing that we look at. The second piece is around the hardware. How much hardware do we need to go and roll out to go and support the number of applications? I didn't actually call it out, but on that previous Microsoft slide, they were saying, what is the cost to stand up 5 individual hosts? That's relatively meaningless depending on densities. Okay, so what is it around servers, networking, storage, electricity, data center space? Okay, if you need less servers, you buy less servers. You don't need as much networking. You don't need as much storage. Storage may stay somewhat the same. You don't need as much electricity or space in the data center. And then around VM guest OS licenses. If you need fewer servers, you need to potentially buy fewer licenses for Windows. So another point, under the Windows licensing model, hopefully you're all aware that with data center licensing model, you get unlimited virtual machines per host, regardless of the virtualization technology in use. Okay, so if we can go and virtualize the same amount of physical machines on 5 servers instead of 7 servers, that's 2 less copies of Windows Data Center licensing that we need to purchase. And then from a management point of view, you need to take into account what are the management architectures required to go and support this. But it's the cost of the management software, the cost of the infrastructure, and the cost of the databases and software to go and do that, all of that. So if we have a look at this now in a hypothetical example of 100 servers. So what we've done is we've gone and taken all of those costs that we saw on the previous screen, and we have gone and taken the reference architectures for deploying the various platforms, and we've gone and applied it to work out what is the cost to go and deploy 100 virtual machines in this particular environment. And you'll see down the bottom there in red, if you've got really good eyesight, we're talking about having a 50% consolidation advantage over Hyper-V in this particular instance. So that means that we're able to get 18 virtual machines on a host compared to 12 virtual machines. And we work out 15% less expensive. However, the first thing that somebody usually says is that I don't believe in memory overcommit. I want to run my servers in physical RAM. Well, that's okay. Because if we look at this exact example in the same context, at the same consolidation ratios, excuse me, at the same consolidation ratios, we wind up about 12% more expensive than a Microsoft solution. Okay? So we're not this 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, 6 times more expensive than a Microsoft solution. However, if we do just 1 or maybe 2 more virtual machines per host, we come out at cost parity. That makes sense? So really, the nuts and the bolts of it was we can host a greater density of virtual machines, lying down with our eyes shut without even, stressing the underlying platform. So we're at cost parity at 1 to 2 more virtual machines per host. And how do you go and articulate this? So on our website, we have a cost per application calculator. Now, this is not designed as a TCO calculator. This is not designed as something really, really complicated. This is designed as a discussion piece. So if you go to VMware.com, down the bottom left-hand side, there's the VMware Advantage. And if you once you go into that screen, you'll see the cost per application calculator. And what you do is you enter the number of virtual machines you want to stand up. We've got some reference architecture, reference hardware there, storage costs, and this is all average. And then we've based this on the various vendors' reference architectures for how you want to go and roll out particular levels of products. So if you were, say, standing up 3 hosts, would compare it to something like System Center Essentials Edition, and we'll go and provide the right hardware and the right databases for that. And what I recommend you do, go and run through this, and it generates a report that you can go and save as a PDF that goes and articulates what exactly it is in recommended retail costs of the various virtualization solutions. I keep a printout of one of these in my compendium. When I go into a meeting with a customer, I get asked, what about cost? I say, well, let's have a discussion around this. Works really well. So to wrap it all up, what I've spoken about is the fact that only VMware can go and deliver the rock-solid platform that supports all of your applications, that has complete management to get you along the journey to the private cloud, has a broader hardware support for all the sorts of infrastructure you would put in your data center, and is slightly out of date and is supported by 190,000 plus customers around the world. So with that, a lot of the information that I've spoken about is on the VMware Advantage site that I just spoke about. So vmware.com, bottom left-hand corner, choose VMware Advantage, or you can use the URL on the screen there. And in addition to that, we have a couple of resources that we use, being the Virtual Reality blog. It's a corporate blog hosted on the VMware community site that goes and talks about various claims that have been made or various technologies that have come to market, and what do we really mean by, or what is the VMware take on those particular announcements or those particular items. So strongly recommend you have a look there. Now, this has been a relatively high-level session from a technical overview, but I do strongly recommend a couple of additional sessions. So tomorrow, the Virtualization Platform shootout, quite interesting, comparing various technologies, and also the head-to-head comparison for the building the private cloud. So you can see those session times up there. I'll leave those for a second, and I'll also open up for questions. Remind you before you leave to fill out your surveys as you've been doing for all of the other sessions. But if you do have a question about anything around the competitive landscape, more than happy to answer it either at the microphone or I'll be outside after the session. So any questions, if you could step up to the microphone. Thank you very much.